New York, 5 a.m. The city was still asleep, but the lights inside Julian Croft's penthouse had been on all night. Light poured from floor-to-ceiling windows like a silver stream, cold and sterile, reflecting the flawless contours of a world no one stayed around to admire. The Patek watch on his wrist ticked in absolute silence. The only sound that broke through the stillness was ice clinking against a whiskey glass. Clink, clack. Yet colder than the melting liquid in his hand was the chill beneath his bare feet. Italian marble, worth thousands per meter, still icy despite the cashmere rug beneath it. This home was once designed by Eleanor. Every curve, every lighting choice, every neutral tone carried her mark. Now they were nothing but walls that whispered memories, a flawless blueprint for emptiness. Julian walked slowly toward the little girl's bedroom door, a white oak door. He didn't have to open it to know what was inside, a small world shaded in pale pink, the scent of new dolls and soft whispers spoken to no one. He placed his hand on the doorknob, then pulled back. A few seconds later, a tiny voice came from within. "Daddy, can you read me a story?" Julian swallowed hard. I have an early call, Soph. Maybe next time. Too easy a lie. Not because he was busy, but because he didn't know what to say when she looked at him with those eyes, Eleanor's eyes. He walked away as he always did, leaving behind a gaze full of hope that would go unanswered. He didn't hate his daughter. He just didn't know how to be her father. Eleanor had always been the bridge between them. And now, that bridge was gone. 6 years old, and Sophie had learned to play alone. Learned to eat frozen waffles by herself. Learned to wait behind a door her father never crossed. Later that morning, as Julian sat at the kitchen counter, exhausted with a cup of espresso in hand, he noticed a crumpled piece of drawing paper neatly placed beside him. The crayon lines were messy, but the image was unmistakable. 3 people standing hand in hand. A woman with long brown hair, a little girl in a pink dress, and a blank space, an unfinished face where the father should have been. Julian stared at that blank space like it was staring back at him. His chest tightened. It wasn't sadness. It was a punch. A silent accusation. Suddenly he stood, walked quickly to Sophie's room. She was tying her doll's hair. "Sophie," he said, voice hoarse from sleeplessness and emotions pressed too long. "Do you want to go out for breakfast somewhere outside? Just us?" She looked up, eyes wide and bright. "Really?" Julian nodded. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew one thing for certain. If he didn't start now, he would lose her forever. West Village, 8:12 a.m. Not the kind of neighborhood Julian usually visited, but this morning he wanted nothing familiar. He didn't take Sophie to the usual rooftop brunch at the Plaza Hotel, where waiters called him Mr. Croft, and nothing on the menu was under $80. Instead, he let instinct take the lead, and that instinct stopped at a small street corner where a wooden sign reading "The Gilded Sparrow" swayed gently beneath a row of fairy lights. Inside, there were no chandeliers, no marble floors, just warm sunlight filtering through linen curtains, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with maple syrup and melting butter. In the corner, an old upright piano played soft jazz every now and then. The tiny room pulsed with laughter, the clinking of spoons on plates, and the scent of freshly baked bread curling through the air. Julian almost took a step back. He wasn't used to uncalculated kindness, wasn't used to a world that didn't need managing. A woman's voice called out, "Hey, sweetie, want to sit outside?" Clara walked over, a blue apron stained with faint coffee spots, hair tied up in a loose bun, and a tired but genuine smile. Not the kind of smile trained by PR teams, the kind born from a busy morning, with just enough love left for strangers. She crouched down to Sophie's level. "Hi there, little one. You brought a friend?" she asked, pointing to the doll in Sophie's arms. Sophie nodded. "This is Ellie." "Ellie? That's a lovely name." Clara gently adjusted the crooked clip in Sophie's hair. "What would you two like for breakfast? We have smiley face pancakes, but only if the customer's really special." Julian said nothing. He had never seen Sophie smile that quickly. Clara glanced at him. "And for you, sir, don't worry, our coffee's strong enough to keep you awake through the entire fiscal year." Julian almost laughed. The line slipped past his defenses and landed in a place he didn't expect: loneliness wrapped in success. They chose a table on the patio. Across the way was a small playground with seesaw slides and a few kids running around. Sophie ate her pancake while sneaking excited glances at the children. "Daddy, can I go play for a bit?" Julian nodded instinctively, pulling out his phone like a shield. But when he looked up, Clara was still there. She wasn't tending another table, just watching Sophie. "She's adorable," she said softly. "You should play with her more. These years, they go by fast." Julian didn't answer. His phone lit up with a 9 a.m. meeting. He didn't press join. Instead, he looked across the yard where Sophie was climbing onto a swing, her little legs kicking gently in the morning light. He didn't know why he had come here, but he knew one thing for sure. This was the first time in a very long time that a place had felt like home. A scream. Short, sharp. It tore through the gentle morning like a knife slicing silk. Julian looked up. Sophie's small legs flew off the swing. Her body twisted mid-air, then dropped to the ground like a doll falling from a shelf. Silence. Then crying, piercing, as shrill as a fire alarm going off inside his chest. Julian shot to his feet but couldn't move. Everything tilted around him. The world blanched like the harsh white light of an emergency room. The smell of antiseptic. The shrill beeping. Eleanor was lying in a hospital bed, her hand cold in his. "There's nothing you can do." That sentence sliced through his mind like a scalpel. Helpless again, paralyzed again. His body was a statue in an earthquake, but someone else moved. Clara. That small frame launched from behind the counter like lightning. A tray of drinks clattered to the floor, glasses shattered with the sound of a red alert. No apologies, no hesitation. She dashed through the door as if her heart alone was the compass. Julian was still frozen, stuck. Clara knelt beside Sophie, forgetting the world. Her eyes scanned like X-rays, checking the scraped knee, the limbs. And then she pulled Sophie into her arms. "Shh. You're okay now, little angel. I've got you." Not a single tear from Clara, but Sophie sobbed, not from pain, fear. And she buried her face into Clara's neck, the only safe place in that moment. Julian saw it all in slow motion. An embrace. A gesture his wealth had never managed to buy. All Sophie needed, a hug, had come from a stranger. Clara carried the little girl inside, passing Julian like he was invisible. No blame, no demands, just doing what was right. Inside, Clara sat down, placed Sophie gently on her lap, and cleaned the wound with warm water and a small first aid kit. She told a story about a superhero princess who once fell off her skateboard. She even landed in a pepperoni pizza, and now she always smells like one. Sophie giggled through her tears. Julian entered as if he had just crossed a desert. He reached for his wallet and pulled out a $100 bill. "I'm sorry for the trouble. Please." Clara looked at the bill, then met his eyes not with anger, but with exhaustion and quiet resolve. "Sir," she said, voice soft, but as clear as a bell, she needed a hug, not $100. "That part is on the house." Julian stood there, still holding the bill, but suddenly it felt weightless, meaningless. Clara turned back to Sophie, continuing her story as if the world hadn't just shifted. And Julian knew it had, not because of a fall, but because someone had known how to kneel at just the right moment. Julian sat in the boardroom on the 42nd floor, the glass wall behind him displaying a sweeping view of majestic New York City. The dazzling light from the skyscrapers, once a source of pride, now seemed almost blinding, unnervingly harsh. On the screen in front of him, a Q4 budget slide flickered by. The presenter used words like growth acquisition strategy and financial leverage, but Julian heard none of it. His mind was replaying one image: Clara kneeling on the ground, cradling Sophie in the arms of a mother, long gone. That hug, the way she wiped away tears, whispered something that made Sophie laugh, even with blood still glistening on her knee. A pure instinct, unplanned, unrewarded. And he, the father, the man who once moved markets with a single nod, stood frozen like a lost child. Julian, a voice snapped him back. His assistant looked at him concerned. "We need your decision on the San Diego deal." Julian blinked. "Postpone it. I need time to think." He rose and walked out, leaving behind a trail of stunned faces. He hadn't walked out of a major meeting in 10 years. That evening, in a penthouse perfect enough to be a showroom, Sophie sat on the carpet, hugging Ellie the doll, and kept repeating, "Miss Clara said, I'm a brave princess. She said, if a princess falls and doesn't cry, that makes her a superhero." Julian sat nearby. No phone, no laptop, just silence and listening. Daddy Sophie looked up, eyes wide, like a rain-washed lake. "Can we see Miss Clara again tomorrow?" It wasn't a question. It was a tiny cry for help. The way a 6-year-old says, "Daddy, please let me feel loved again." Julian nodded. He couldn't speak. That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep, Julian sat with a glass of whisky, but this time he didn't drink. He opened his laptop and typed "The Gilded Sparrow" into Google. A few short reviews, a handful of blurry photos, nothing flashy, no LinkedIn profile, no social media presence for Clara, just an ordinary woman. No fame, no visible ambition. But her action, simple, uncalculated, had shifted the emotional axis of his and his daughter's life. In Julian's world, everything had a price. But kindness didn't exist on a spreadsheet. The next morning, he made breakfast for Sophie, clumsy pancakes with slightly burnt edges. But she finished every bite. When they got in the car, instead of typing away on his phone, Julian turned and asked Sophie, "Would you rather sit inside or outside today?" She grinned. "Outside, near the playground." Julian smiled. For the first time in a very long time, he didn't need a plan. All he needed was to return to where it all began, where there was coffee in the air, laughter in the room, and an embrace strong enough to shake a frozen heart loose. Julian Croft was no longer the lost customer at the Gilded Sparrow. He and Sophie had become regulars. No more tailored suits, just rolled-up sleeves, no tie, a simple father walking his daughter into a little patio corner where Clara always had smiley face pancakes and freshly squeezed orange juice waiting. Clara no longer kept her distance either, but she never tried to move closer. She let things unfold naturally, like sunlight through a window, like the scent of cookies each morning, enough to make Julian sometimes forget he once lived in a world ruled by contracts and boardrooms. One quiet Thursday afternoon, the cafe was nearly empty. Sophie was playing with blocks with another child, and Julian sat alone with his coffee. Clara walked over, holding a warm slice of banana bread, fresh from the oven. "This one's not on the menu," she said, placing the plate down. "But I figured you could use it." "Julian," he corrected gently, Call me Julian, unless you still think I'm the kind of guest who needs a price tag before every smile. Clara gave a soft laugh. Julian, it is. But my smiles are still free. They fell into silence for a moment. Only the faint stirring of a spoon against glass filled the air. Julian asked, "Did you study psychology?" Clara paused for a beat. "How'd you guess the way you talked to Sophie, the way you handled things when she fell? Doesn't feel like something you just learn waiting tables." She sat down, met his gaze for the first time without looking away. "I had a full scholarship to Columbia, majored in special education." She paused. "Then Noah was diagnosed with severe autism during my freshman year. My little brother." Julian nodded. He didn't ask more, but his eyes said it clearly. "I'm listening. Truly. My parents died in a car crash a few months later. I dropped out, moved back home, took whatever jobs I could, diners, bookstores, babysitting, just to cover Noah's meds. And now, he passed away 2 years ago. Pneumonia." She said it like she was recounting a long winter. No tears, just the chill that still lingered in her chest. "He taught me more than any professor ever could," she continued. "About patience, about seeing what no one else sees." Julian tightened his grip around his coffee cup. "Eleanor," he hesitated the name, leaving his lips for the first time outside a therapist's office. "She was the reason my world ever had color. After she left, the apartment stayed the same, but everything became quiet." They looked at each other, not with curiosity, but with recognition of two people who had lost a piece of their soul. They could never be replaced. Julian pulled a small invitation card from his pocket and placed it on the table. "There's a charity gala tomorrow night, hosted by the Julian Croft Foundation. You'll probably hate it. Masks and overpriced champagne everywhere." But Clara asked softly, her lips curling, just slightly, "But I want you to come. As a friend." He looked away, as if those two words had drained every ounce of courage from his day. Clara smiled. "Friends don't need ball gowns, do they?" "Don't worry," Julian said. "I already had one picked out. It's gorgeous, but not as gorgeous as you." She shook her head, laughing. "That might be the worst compliment I've ever heard." "First try," Julian replied. "I'm still relearning how to be human." Clara had never imagined herself stepping into the Metropolitan Museum of Art, wearing a couture gown worth several months' salary, let alone one that fit as if it had been made for her. The dress had arrived at her doorstep with a handwritten note. "I didn't know your favorite color, so I chose one Eleanor used to love. Hopefully it suits you better than it ever suited that world." A private driver picked her up in a Bentley, its leather seats infused with the scent of lavender and fresh polish. But nothing stunned Clara more than the gala's grand foyer chandeliers, glittering like suspended meteors, violins weaving back through the air, and the soft clink of wine glasses echoing like wind across ice. She spotted Julian at the bottom of the marble staircase. He was no longer the man from the cafe, but the powerful figure from magazine covers, tailored tuxedo, distant eyes, and the stride of someone used to being obeyed. But when he saw her, something in his gaze shifted. It softened, like sunlight finally breaking over a still lake. "You just gave this room a reason to breathe," he said quietly. Clara smiled. "That sounds like a board-approved pickup line." Julian laughed, his first real laugh of the evening. They moved through the crowd together. But Clara noticed it, all the sideways glances, the whispered jabs. Who is she? Probably his new project. Another charity case, with good skin. Clara kept her chin high. She'd lived through harsher days than those looks. But Julian, standing beside her, heard every word. His jaw tightened, yet instead of reacting, he reached for her hand. Amid the hollow laughter and conversations about stock portfolios, Clara stepped back instinctively. That's when she saw the boy around 10, with the distinct features of Down syndrome, sitting alone in the corner, eyes lost. Without a moment's hesitation, Clara walked over. She knelt to his level, folded a napkin into a frog, then a dog, then an airplane. The boy burst into laughter, pure, uninhibited, the only sound in the room that felt truly alive. His parents, an elegantly dressed couple, likely major donors, watched from a distance, stunned. The mother covered her mouth, overcome. Julian turned and saw the scene. He froze. She didn't need the spotlight. She didn't say a single grand thing. Yet, in that overpriced ballroom, she was the only one doing something that mattered. When the night ended and they were in the car on the way back, silence stretched between them, comfortable, weightless, until Julian spoke. "You don't belong in that world." Clara turned to him. "I know, you don't belong to that world. But somehow, you make it better." She looked at him. No smile, no armor, just eyes that had softened like the sky after rain. "Maybe. I just did what anyone should do." Julian nodded. "That's the problem. No one does it anymore." 2 days after the gala, Clara received an unexpected call from Julian's assistant. "Mr. Croft would like to see you in his office. It's not urgent. But," he said, "if she declines, I'll understand. But if she comes, let me finish what I need to say." Wearing her old canvas coat, Clara stepped into the headquarters of Croft Holdings, a tower of steel and glass, rising like Manhattan's spine. But when the private office door opened, it wasn't the icy world she had imagined. There was no massive conference table, no wall-to-wall screens. Just a warm, walnut-paneled room, bathed in soft amber light, carrying the gentle scent of jasmine tea in the air. On the wall hung photos of Sophie, of Eleanor, of days gone by. And in the center, a simple wooden table with 2 chairs facing each other. Clara sat. Julian sat across from her. "Thank you for coming," he began. Clara nodded. Curiosity won over courtesy. Julian smiled faintly. Then his expression turned serious. "The Eleanor Croft Foundation has a $12 million annual budget for programs supporting special needs children. We have facilities. We have staff. But we don't have soul." He slid a folder toward her admissions documents for Columbia University Special Education major. Stamped, funded, complete. Clara opened it. Her hands trembled slightly. "I know this was a dream you had to give up for reasons no one should have to face," Julian said. "I can't give you back the past, but I can help reclaim your future. No, more than that. I want us to build it together." "What is this?" Clara whispered, voice catching. "It's not charity, and it's not a reward. It's an invitation to be part of the legacy Eleanor left behind. She once dreamed of building a school for children no one listened to. You're the only person I've ever met who truly knows how to listen." Clara leaned back, eyes glistening. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why me?" Julian looked at her this time, without deflecting, without deferring. "Because my daughter loves you." Clara looked up. "Julian, and so do I. No music, no fireworks, no grand declarations, just truth, plain and quiet, stronger than any contract Julian had ever signed." Just then, the door swung open. Sophie ran in and wrapped her arms tightly around Clara from behind. "Miss Clara, can I tell you something?" "What is it?" Angel. Clara bent down. "I wish you could stay with us. Forever." Julian met Clara's gaze through their daughter's tousled hair, and Clara met his no longer guarded, no longer retreating. Only peace remained between people who had finally found each other in a world too quick to let moments like this slip away. A year passed. No more silent penthouse overlooking Central Park. Now Julian's little family lived in a warm, cozy house in suburban Connecticut, complete with a backyard, an apple tree, and a white wooden porch. Sophie called it the new sparrow's nest. Montage, quiet moments, simple but vivid. Julian clumsily tied Sophie's hair in the morning, accidentally clipping the barrette way off to the side. Clara was behind them, laughing quietly, not wanting to interrupt. Clara was studying late at night Columbia coursework spread across the kitchen table. Julian walks by, gently sets down a cup of hot cocoa beside her. Says nothing. She looks up, smiles. That's all it takes. They decorate the Christmas tree together. For the first time, the house is filled with music, the smell of fresh cookies drifting through the air. Sophie laughs until her belly hurts when Julian places the treetopper star upside down and leaves it that way. A spring afternoon. The backyard. Pedal hard, Sophie. You've got this. Julian runs alongside a small bicycle. Clara cheers from near the fence. Sophie makes 2 full circles, then wobbles and falls. Half a second of silence. Julian doesn't freeze, doesn't hesitate. He rushes forward, kneels, and pulls her into his arms. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm right here. That sentence, Clara had once whispered it to Sophie on a life-changing morning. And now it came from the father, whose face had once been left blank in his daughter's drawing. Clara steps forward, dusts off Sophie's scraped knee. The little girl holds both their hands as if there's nothing more in the world she could possibly need. Final frame. The 3 of them sit on the front porch steps. Dusk. Golden light spills over their hair like honey. The house behind them isn't grand, isn't opulent, but it glows with laughter. Julian looks around. No New York skyline. No stock tickers, balance sheets, or prestigious awards. Just Clara, Sophie, and a golden sunrise. And he knows this is his true legacy. Julian once believed his worth was measured in power and accomplishments, but he was wrong. Redemption doesn't come from million-dollar deals. It comes from arms that hold you just in time, from simple words, from people who dare to love, even after they've been broken. Family isn't where we're born. It's where we choose to stay, to rebuild piece by piece. Have you ever stopped, looked around, and asked yourself what truly matters? If this story warmed your heart, if it reminded you of someone who walked into your life the way Clara did, Julian's share it. Comment below and tell us about the person who changed your life. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss more stories that touch the heart right here on Toch Story. Because sometimes the right hug at the right time can change everything.